All right, so get ready because today we are really diving deep into some fascinating stuff by arguably one of the most influential thinkers in history,
Definitely one of those influential.
Plato.
Mhm.
We're talking about his work Republic, Book V, specifically some excerpts that you shared with us.
Yeah.
And wow, this is where I think things get really interesting because he starts talking about women and their role in society.
Yeah, juicy is a good way to put it, actually.
Yeah.
We're going to be grappling with some ideas that are still provocative even today, never mind back then, about women and power and what a good society even looks like.
So just to set the scene a little bit, we're in ancient Athens. Socrates is
Yeah.
kind of like holding court,
Yeah.
and he starts to talk about these ideas about women and his ideal republic.
This is it. This is the big one, the ideal republic. And, picture it. It's a time when the idea of women having any sort of role in politics, let alone being in the military,
Right.
was unheard of.
Right.
And Socrates comes along and is like, well, why don't we have women guardians?
Yeah.
In fact, they should be trained alongside men.
Wow. So he's talking about women warriors.
He's talking about women warriors.
This is radical stuff for back then.
Radical's an understatement.
Yeah.
It really is. It made people's heads spin.
So what was Plato really trying to get at here with this idea?
I think what's really fascinating here is that Socrates challenges the whole foundation of how people saw gender roles at the time.
Okay.
He says it's not about being male or female, it's about your aptitude as a person. Right.
Right.
So the best guardians, whether they're men or women, are the ones who have that capacity for reason, for courage,
For wisdom.
wisdom. Exactly.
Okay.
So it's about finding the best of the best, regardless of whether they're men or women.
Yeah. So it's like you were saying, even today.
Oh,
That's
absolutely.
a bold statement.
It's still a bold statement. It ruffles feathers to this day.
And it doesn't stop there.
Oh, no.
He goes on, and I think this might be even more radical than the women warriors.
Okay.
He starts to talk about family.
Well, that's the thing.
Yeah.
He then takes this idea of unity and he applies it to the family structure of the guardians, or I should say, the lack thereof.
Okay, so I knew something was coming, but
Chuckle.
he wants to get rid of families.
Well, he wants to get rid of the nuclear family,
Okay.
as we understand it.
What was going through Plato's head here? What was his thinking?
So he proposes that the children are raised communally, like everyone's raising the children together.
Whoa.
And crucially, they don't know who their biological parents are.
Oh, wow.
Right. So his thinking is this is going to lead to an even greater sense of unity, of shared purpose.
Right.
Right. It will eliminate conflicts of loyalty. There's no,
Right.
my family's better than your family, because in a sense, everyone is family.
So this is like next level
Oh, absolutely.
social engineering.
Social engineering at its finest.
No more family dinners, no more inheritance.
Chuckles. Exactly.
It's wild.
A bold vision. You have to give him that.
Yeah, and then he goes even a step further.
Well, he's got to, right?
Yeah.
He's got to keep going.
Right. It's like,
To really cement this unity, he's like, okay, even marriage
yeah.
amongst the guardians
Yeah.
has got to be controlled by the state.
Wow.
It's all about, and this is a recurring thing with Plato, it's all about producing, in his mind, the best possible offspring.
Yeah.
So he's very concerned with
Wow.
who is breeding with who, and he believes that the state should have a hand in this.
So we've got women warriors
Yeah.
training alongside men,
Yep.
children being raised communally,
Communally.
and then to top it all off,
Yeah.
we've got
State-sanctioned matchmaking?
state-sanctioned matchmaking.
That's a lot.
It sounds intense.
Intense is one word for it, but this is Plato trying to create a utopia. This is his vision of a perfect society ruled by wisdom and reason, and this leads us to probably his most kind of, I don't know, intriguing and controversial idea.
Yeah.
His idea of philosopher kings.
All right, so let's get into that because now we're talking about philosophers running the show.
Yeah.
It seems like a recipe for endless debate
Tickles.
and not a lot of action.
Right. Well, maybe we shouldn't dismiss the philosophers quite so quickly,
Okay.
because Plato really believed that philosophers were the best equipped to lead.
Okay.
And not because they're, charismatic or power hungry,
Right.
but because they're driven by this love of truth and wisdom.
Okay, I get it. So Plato, he valued wisdom. But why philosophers? Like, why are they the ones who have this special insight in his view?
So he makes this really important distinction between knowledge and opinion.
Okay.
And, he uses this famous allegory of the cave, right?
Right.
He says, imagine a cave. Most people, he argues, are like prisoners in this cave, and they're mistaking shadows on the wall for reality.
Right.
They're guided by these fleeting opinions, these, kind of
Biases,
biases, exactly, these kind of things that shift and change all the time.
emotions, all that kind of stuff.
Emotions, all that.
So where do the philosophers fit into this?
So the philosophers, they're the ones who have broken free from the cave.
Okay.
They've seen the light, literally the light of truth.
So they're the enlightened ones.
They're the enlightened ones.
They've seen how things really are.
Exactly.
And because of that, they're the ones best suited to lead.
They're the ones who've dedicated their lives to pursuing knowledge,
Right.
to understanding those unchanging eternal truths that govern the universe.
It's a pretty powerful image.
It is a powerful image, and I think it gets to the heart of what Plato's trying to say.
So, okay, I'm starting to see where he's coming from.
Yeah.
So in Plato's Republic, in this ideal republic, you're not going to have these politicians who are
Right.
making promises just to get elected or
Right.
basing their decisions on,
Public opinion polls.
public opinion polls. Exactly.
Exactly.
It's about what's truly best.
It's about what's truly best for society, guided by wisdom and reason.
It's a pretty idealistic vision.
It is. There's no doubt about that. It's a very idealistic vision.
But I mean, could it ever work in practice?
Right. And that's
That's the question.
the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, because philosophers, let's face it, they love their abstract ideas.
Right.
They love their endless debates.
Right. So how do you get them to actually,
Yeah. How do you get them to deal with the nitty-gritty realities
Yeah.
of governing a society?
Right. Exactly.
And that's a question that's been debated for centuries.
Right.
Plato himself acknowledges that there are challenges,
Right.
right? He doesn't give us like a step-by-step guide
Right.
for how to create these philosopher kings.
So it's more about sparking a conversation,
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it.
getting us to think differently about leadership,
Exactly. Exactly.
about what qualities we should be looking for,
Yes,
the
absolutely.
people who have power.
And I think this is where it gets really interesting and really relevant to us today.
Okay.
Think about the challenges we face.
Right.
Political polarization, misinformation everywhere.
It's almost like he saw this coming, right?
It's like he was writing this yesterday. These are things that he warned about centuries ago.
Yeah.
He recognized that a society that's detached from reason and truth is a society that's headed for trouble.
Right. So what do we do? I mean, how do we apply these insights? I mean, we're living in a world that's
Right.
light years away from ancient Athens.
Yeah. And that's the challenge, right? I mean, his republic might be this utopian ideal,
Right.
but the questions he's asking are timeless.
Right.
He's asking us to think about justice, to think about leadership,
About truth.
about truth. What does it even mean
Yeah.
to create a society that's just and equitable?
So it's not so much about, following his blueprint exactly.
Right.
It's about taking these principles
It's about the principles.
and applying them to our
Yep.
world today.
Exactly. And I really think that's key because,
Yeah.
we can get so caught up in the specifics
Right.
of his time.
Right. Of his proposals.
But it's the underlying message that matters.
Right. So what would Plato say about our 24/7 news cycle and
Oh man.
social media? It's like, would he even?
I don't even know.
Yeah.
I think it would blow his mind. He would be astounded.
Yeah.
But I think his message would be even more urgent today
Right.
because it's so easy
Yep.
to get swept away in the flow of opinions
Right. Yeah.
and to mistake, what's
Mhm.
popular for what's true.
And to mistake those shadows on the wall for reality.
Exactly. Exactly.
It's kind of mind-blowing to think about how, like, this whole idea of women being in charge was just like, whoa, crazy talk back then.
I know, right?
But have we really come that far? I mean, are we really living in a world where Plato's vision of equality is actually happening?
It's a tough one, isn't it? Because, I mean, yeah, we've made huge strides, right?
Right.
Like, we see women breaking barriers in pretty much every field you can think of.
Yeah.
Fields that were, like, totally off limits back then. But
Right.
then you step back and you see these inequalities,
Yeah.
things that Plato was wrestling with. They're still around, just in different forms.
It's like we're getting closer, but we're not quite there yet.
Yeah.
And maybe that's part of, like, the point, right?
Right.
Like, maybe the journey is kind of what he's trying to get us to think about.
I think that's a really good point because remember, his republic, it's an ideal.
Right.
It's a thought experiment.
Yeah.
He's not saying this is exactly how it has to be.
Right.
He's pushing us to think, what if?
What if, yeah, what if the world was actually just an equitable? What would that look like?
Exactly. And how do we even get there?
So he's not giving us all the answers.
No.
He's kind of throwing out these really
Tough questions.
big, tough questions.
Yeah, and saying, like, all right, what do you think? Exactly. Don't just take my word for it. Wrestle with this yourselves.
And those questions, they haven't gone away. I mean, people are still
Thousands of years.
debating this stuff.
Yeah,
Right.
and I think that's what makes it so powerful.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that progress isn't just this straight line.
Right.
It's messy. It's back and forth.
It's a journey.
It's a journey.
It's not a destination.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And engaging with these ideas, even if they're ancient, even if they seem kind of out there,
Yeah.
that's how we keep moving forward.
So we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
Plato's Republic, it's a trip.
It's a wild ride.
It's a wild ride, but I think the big takeaway here is
Yeah.
that, it's not enough to just think about these ideals.
No.
Right. We have to actually do something.
We got to live it.
Yeah, we have to,
Put it into practice.
put it into practice. Yeah. And maybe
Yeah.
by having these conversations, by really trying to understand this stuff,
Yeah.
we can actually start to build a world that's a little bit closer to
I love that.
Plato's vision
Yes.
of justice and harmony.
It's a beautiful thought, isn't it?
It is.
It's a beautiful thought.
It's a beautiful thought, and I think on that note, that's a good place to wrap up
I agree.
this deep dive into
The deep dive.
Plato's Republic. Thank you so much for joining me, for sharing your insights, for
It's been a pleasure.
really unpacking these really complex and important ideas.
It's been my pleasure. I always love chatting with you about this stuff.
And to everyone listening, I hope this has sparked some thoughts, some ideas.
Keep those conversations going.
Keep those conversations going, exactly. And maybe, if you're feeling really adventurous, pick up a copy of The Republic yourself. You might be surprised
You never know.
what you discover.
Exactly.
All right, well, that's it for this deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking those tough questions, and keep striving to make the world a little bit wiser, a little bit more just, and a little bit more harmonious.